How's it going, everybody? And welcome to this edition of the Stupid Questions podcast. Today, our guest is Evan Price, who is a doctor in the physical therapy world. He is a professional triathlete, obviously. Love having those guys in the podcast. And he's just an all around super nice guy. Met him for the first time when I went down to a race actually in April, St. Anthony's, which is like one of the longest running triathlons in this sport for like 40 years, and just got an opportunity to know him a little bit. And when I started this podcast, I was like, hey man, you want to be on? Super knowledgeable guy, knows a lot of cool people, obviously a super nice guy. So I hope that you enjoy this episode. Well, Evan, thank you so much for jumping on, man. It's a
Absolutely.
pleasure to get to chat a little bit more. I guess for those who probably wouldn't know, I got to meet you for the first time in April down at the St. Anthony's Triathlon, which is my first time doing that race. How long have you done that race?
That was actually my first time too.
Oh, really?
I was originally born in Florida at Eglin Air Force Base, but I actually hadn't been back to Florida in like
Wow.
25, 30 years, I think. So that
Wow,
was my
really?
first, that was my first time doing St. A's. And this year I may be back for Ironman Florida too. So I might, for the first time, have two races in Florida since had been gone for more than 2 decades.
Yeah. Are you doing the full Ironman in November, or are you thinking about doing like Haines City in December?
That's the plan is to do the full Ironman. So
Okay.
I'll do the whatever week that is, like the first week in November, I think.
Nice. Have you done a full Ironman this season yet?
I've actually never done a full Ironman.
Oh, let's
Period.
go.
I in 2020 have a funny story where me and a good friend who this at the end of this year will be racing pro did a
Nice.
one-on-one Ironman in like the 6 months into the pandemic. We set up a course and just kind of went one-on-one, and I ended up
Really?
pull. Yeah, I ended up pulling out at mile 20 because I was just absolutely wrecked and was walking at that point. So
Uh,
he had a good race and smoked me. So I've never actually completed an Ironman before.
oh, that pretty close though. I mean, if you're in a race, you probably would have a little bit
Yeah.
more motivation. But that's, did
Whew,
it
I don't
feel
know.
like a race when you were doing that?
Oh, absolutely, man. Because that was like 2020 when we didn't even know if racing was going to come back. So
Yeah.
any event we set up at that point, just
Just
ourselves, felt
yeah.
like a race. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, that's so crazy.
yeah,
Yeah. I'm trying to think. We did some similar things. It was mostly not whole triathlons, but we did a few run stuff with our focus endurance
yeah.
coaching crew and stuff like that. Yeah, that's super fun.
That's
That's
awesome.
awesome. So you said you grew up at the Air Force Base down there in Florida?
Yep. So I was born at Eglin Air Force Base in Florida. We moved up to Ohio after that, then overseas to Korea, back to Ohio, and then once I was in high school, my dad retired. So I was an Air Force brat growing up, and then it still kept on moving after that. So
Yeah.
once I got through school and all, I went overseas to India, came back, went to Colorado, then went to the Pacific Northwest, where I've been for the last 7 years now, which is Vancouver, Washington, which is just north of Portland. So
Yeah.
we're kind of the north city of the Columbia River. If you got the Columbia River and Portland's on the
Mm-hmm.
south side, we're the city right on the other side. So
Okay, nice.
yeah,
Yeah.
you get the cool parts of being in the Pacific Northwest without the big city of Portland. So
Yeah.
I grew up in a lot of small towns, so I kind of like Vancouver over living in Portland anyway.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I was gonna ask. What was that like moving around and stuff? But you've
Yeah,
really taken a liking to the
yeah, I've loved moving around, and now I'd be fine living here the rest of my life. So I was enjoying moving around for a good 30 years there, and then I just love Vancouver. So we're probably gonna stay here for a good long time.
yeah. Good man. That's so cool. That's good to hear.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm curious. In growing up, tell me a little bit about. It seems like you traveled quite a bit, and I don't know what that
Hmm.
age range was from, but what was that like? Like, how long did it last? How did that impact who you are today? You think?
Yeah, that was I was really lucky to grow up being able to live abroad. I would say was really cool living in Eastern Asia and South Korea.
Yeah.
Got to visit China while we were there. Got to visit Thailand while we
Oh,
were
yeah.
there, and
Yeah.
I would say it definitely shaped me from a perspective of I had a real appreciation for just different cultures growing up, and definitely in a sport like triathlon. The cool part about triathlon is that you could travel in almost any. I mean, these days every continent seems like it has a some triathlon event now.
Yeah.
So for me, it's cool because in the next 10, 20 years of my life, maybe when I'm done trying to race professionally, I can go to some of these countries and experience some of those cultures from a racing perspective too, which is just a blast. As much as I love, just my own training ground, and I'm very habit based, so I could do the same thing week after week. I do love once or twice a year, taking abroad trips.
Yeah.
So
Like, yeah.
yeah,
Well, cool, man. Yeah. So the first time when I was, I guess 9, I got to go on an abroad trip to India, and like that was the
yeah,
beginning of just a eye-opening experience for sure. Of like, you go to any foreign country, I think really doesn't even
yeah,
matter, even if it's Mexico or Canada, and you just get a different taste for like, oh, life's not what I thought it was, kind of everywhere, kind of a
yeah.
situation. Um,
Exactly.
what?
India's wild too. That
Yeah.
is, I was lucky enough to be able to experience India as an adult. That was right when I got out of physical therapy school.
Really?
I worked over there as a physical therapist for a short bit, and India was one of the coolest places I will ever visit. But
Mm.
that is, and you probably remember this, is it is so chaotic.
Yeah.
I mean, after 3 months there, I got so used to noise and just crazy traffic that it
Yeah.
was.
That's what I was gonna say.
I know,
Traffic.
coming back here, I was like, man, I like wasn't even scared to ride my bike almost anywhere
Really?
up here, because I was like, oh yeah, the roads are so wide and
Yeah.
there's so many less cars on the road here,
Yeah,
so
for sure. And
it
they actually
was.
abide by rules most of the time.
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
there's just, I mean, we joked in India, the only law of the road was if there's a space you can fill it.
Yeah.
That was
Exactly.
basically it. And it was nothing but rickshaws and much smaller cars.
Yeah.
There's a lot of automobiles out there.
Yeah, for sure. What part of India were you in?
We were in Bengaluru, so
Okay.
South India.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, man. So talk me through like I guess high school or even middle school, high school, were you into sport? And then like you
Mhm.
get in through high school, you go to college, you decide PT, like what was that journey like? And then professional triathlete, obviously.
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to grow up. My dad was a road cyclist with the Air Force team. He
Oh,
would
cool.
do like Ragbri every year, so he really enjoyed road cycling. So I was actually a big fan of the Tour de France and just professional
Mm.
road cycling growing up. But my athletic career was mostly soccer and basketball.
Oh,
So
really?
loved soccer, loved basketball. I always ran. Like that was just, I had buddies that were track and field. And I mean, like I went to a small enough high school, and depending on where you're from and kind of the era that we grew up to, you remember
Yeah.
you could do a bunch of different sports. So I used
Yeah.
to, I mean, I basically run trained while playing soccer, which
Yeah.
I loved the most, and I skateboarded actually.
Okay,
So
nice.
yeah, so I had to quit skateboarding at some point because I picked up way too many concussions. I was looking back now, being a physical therapist, I was like, oh, I for sure had enough that I should have quit much earlier than I
Yeah.
did. But once I was done with skateboarding, that was towards the beginning of high school. Focused on soccer. Went and played a year of college soccer at Ohio Northern University,
Mm-hmm.
and I was lucky enough to really have a good aerobic base just because of years of run training, and I had worked at a bike shop, so I got a sweetheart deal on a road bike, and ended up just riding and road racing a bunch because I'd
Wow.
grown up a huge Tour de France fan. So I wanted nothing more than to jump into road races, and
Yeah.
I at some point realized I sucked at soccer. So
Yeah.
after riding the bench for a year as a college soccer player, you kind of realize you're like, this is pointless. I'm
Yeah.
not seeing the field anytime soon. So
Yeah.
I realized I was much better at aerobic sports. And after my freshman year in college, so I was like 18, 19, I just kind of went all in on triathlon,
Really?
running,
Wow.
road racing, and cycling. So I was racing a ton back then, man. I would do every other weekend. I seemed like I was doing some local triathlon, and I would road race in between all the spaces. So it was either racing triathlon or road racing or jumping into 5Ks and 10Ks. So
Wow.
yeah, it was a fun time. I mean, I was completely self coached, 1000% just going off of whatever I wanted to do at that time. But when you're 18 and 19, I feel like that's a fun way to approach it.
Yeah, for sure. Did you notice like growth through that? I mean, even with all the personal coaching and stuff?
Yeah, I definitely realized. I think I made a ton of mistakes early on, which was awesome. Like I
Sure.
really, especially in my training, man. Like so, I went to Ohio Northern University, which was in Northwest Ohio, in like literally in windmill country. So it's
Okay.
like not the only hill is like a highway overpass out there,
Mm.
but it's incredibly windy. So my training was basically the same like 40-mile block every day on the road bike because there's only so many roads you could even ride out there. Like you can't
Yeah.
get that creative with your routes.
Yeah.
So it was it was the same type of workout every day. It was, okay, the first 20 miles or so was headwind, crosswind. So it was like, threshold 20 miles and then tailwind recovery, come back and run off the bike. And I had no structure or intervals. It was just doing that every day,
Some
basically.
Ironman blocks. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it really was. And then on the weekends, I would try to do 3 or 4 laps of that. So looking back, there was like no structure or intervals or anything. I just tried to train hard, and then all my intervals was racing. So I would just
Yeah.
race, most weekends. So
Yeah.
I
Works out.
yeah, I liked the lack of specificity. It was fun. Like I learned how to like overtrain, and then realized what overtraining was, and then backed off it, and then raced better, and then tried to overtrain again, and just repeated that pattern for four
Yeah.
years basically.
Was the overtraining that you realized, oh, I'm overtraining, was that because of like you felt terrible or because you were reading and you found out like, oh, this is a thing?
Yeah, so I was an exercise physiology major too. So I
Okay.
definitely, through my own learning, and I worked in a physio lab too at that time. So we did VO2 max testing in one of my classes, and we had a great professor who
Mm-hmm.
let me do some of the testing with him. I got to test my own VO2 max a few times too for free, which was great because that can get
Yeah.
expensive. So
Yeah. Hundreds.
yeah, I mean, really, how I realized I was overtraining was my race results. So when I was racing well, I was like, oh, wow, I feel fresh and recovered. And then I'd train hard and then have a terrible road race on the weekend and, absolutely
Yeah.
destroy myself in some triathlon and then realize, oh, that was too much. Like I need to back
Yeah.
down. So it was just that kind of finding my own threshold. But looking back at my logs, because I just had written logs at that time. So I
Mm.
just had agendas and I would
Yeah.
just write in these agendas my volume, and I got pretty obsessed with hitting certain volumes. And I realized, looking back, I'm like, wow, I was
Yeah.
not nearly talented or experienced enough to be doing those volumes, and that's probably why I was running into
Yeah. Do you
running
remember
into
what kind of
issues. Right?
volumes you were pushing?
Yeah, there were some weeks I got pretty obsessed with 12 to 15 hours on the bike. So I would do 12
Oh
to
my
15
goodness.
hours on the bike. I was a terrible swimmer at that time, but I would still try to swim 10K a week. And then I
Wow.
was running um, usually 40 to 45 miles a week, and that was like in the first couple of years of my triathlon career. So I
Wow.
was I
Yeah,
was
you're like
completely
pro.
inexperienced and inefficient. So
Yeah.
I was,
Wow. That's wild. You mentioned the fact with just like overtraining, how you I guess that's one of the benefits of racing so frequently is you can kind of measure, oh, how I feel
yeah,
versus how you're doing. But I was talking with do you know Scott Tinley?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely, yeah.
yeah, so I got to interview him
Oh, that's cool.
a
That's a
couple of
good
weeks ago,
interview.
and his interview when it comes out is going to be so good because I'll just tell you two stories,
Hmm.
just in case you don't listen to the podcast. But it's so crazy. So one of them, I was like, "What kind of pro volume? What was pro volume back then?" And he's like, well, we did it completely wrong because we didn't really know what overtraining was." And he said, I forget for how many years, but he said he was doing 40 to 50 hours a week
Yeah,
of training with no recovery days and like they're going out, and nutrition wasn't a thing, and they were like whatever we could stop at a gas station, that's when we would
yep.
eat. So he'd stop every once in a while. But he said at his first world championship race, I think it was, he pulled in to put his bike and racket, and he said he looked over to the pro next to him, and this guy had wired a glass jar of peanut butter to his handlebars, and he told me, he's like, I looked down at it and I was like, this guy's a genius. So so it's like, yeah, with the overtraining and the eating,
Yeah,
the nutrition, it's just crazy how far the sports come now to where, we have a lot of
it
education
is.
around that.
And
But
guys like Scott Tinley or like Mark Allen and Dave Scott,
hmm
I think we take for granted nowadays when we look at like how amazing the Norwegians are or Magnus Ditlev, we forget that like everything that they know and learned had to come from that era
yeah.
too. So that era had to make their mistakes. And I think
Oh
that
yeah.
that's something we really underrate. And I see this in the comments that, nobody should ever read comment sections of YouTube videos, but like I see this in the comment sections of like a guy like Lionel or a guy like Sam Long, where like I love that Lionel and Sam like experiment, try stuff,
hmm
fail, and then try again. And
Yeah.
there's people ripping them in there for that. And I'm like, God, man, yeah, if you look back at how Tinley was training, guys probably would have been like, oh, that's stupid. It's like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
He's just trying something out. We're going to see if it works or not.
Yeah.
I have a funny story about I actually, when I was 21 or two, so I'd been a couple years into training, I watched an old Specialized video. If you remember those when they were doing like Javier Gomez, Tim Don, and
Yeah. Yeah.
Jan
Yeah. They're pretty
Frodeno.
sweet.
Yeah. So Jan had a good one. This is back when he was racing Draft Legal.
Okay.
And he had some crazy 2-day training block that they filmed him through. He like swam 6K, biked 3 or 4 hours each day, and like did double runs on both days. And one of them was like a tempo hill run. The other one's like a 16 by 400. Did some crazy amount of
Oof.
volume and intensity. And I tried to take those couple days and then repeat it over a whole week. And I had heard that he trained for between 40 and 45 hours that week. So I, on a spring break, my senior year of undergrad, came home and basically trained 42 hours is what I hit that week. And it was just some crazy amount of biking. I think it was like 26-hour bike
Oh
week.
my
I did
goodness.
multiple centuries. And I was just convinced, I was like, this is, anytime I got free time outside of work and school, I'm going to train 40 hours a week.
Mm.
And then 2 weeks later, I had a race and was absolutely terrible. I just cracked during this race
Oh
and
man.
realized I was like, oh yeah, I'm definitely not Jan Frodeno, so there's no reason to be training 40 hours a week. But
Yeah.
it was a fun experiment.
Yeah, that's crazy. It is amazing how much the body can build a resilience toward
Hmm.
for handling volume, but even still, like even, we joke about those things like with Scott and David, or Dave Scott and all those guys that were doing these things, but he was telling me like, because we learned after the 80s and 90s and going into the early 2000s, oh, this is actually bad for your heart. And like a lot
Yeah,
of them had like, multiple ablations and all this other crazy stuff where they're just because they had to learn. So there's a lot of sacrifice that comes from those before and
there
learning
is.
those experiments for sure.
And nowadays too, this is something I realize watching the Tour de France too nowadays with how amazing the likes of Vingegaard and Pogacar are.
Hmm.
It's recovery science is really what's improved amazingly well.
Yeah.
And that's something that I'm sure I'm sure if Scott was to really bring up like his sleep logs probably, or what he was eating, or like, how much time he was spending off his feet, it probably wasn't near enough. And that's
Yeah.
that's
No,
what I think
definitely
is the
not.
difference now is a guy like, there are guys like Sam Laidlow, I think, that still train huge bike volumes. And they I just think recover super well. They're
Yeah.
they're smart with their recovery, and it's the boring answer. Like nobody wants to hear like, oh hey, how do you train 40 hours a week? Like you sleep a lot.
Yeah.
That's really the number one thing is you eat a lot and you sleep a lot. But it's interesting to see that pendulum shift now towards not just flogging yourself for like
Yeah.
40 hours a week. It's like, oh, you got to absorb the training too.
Yeah. 100%. I'm curious. So you started doing this. Was it a dream to do this just full time, or did you always want to go to be like a doctor, physical therapist, or
Yeah.
how did that happen?
Uh, You know, I have a funny story. So Bob Duncan was a mentor of mine when I was young. Bob is Andrew Starkowitz's coach.
Yep.
So one of the best people I've ever met. Love Bob Duncan. I don't even think he's on the internet, to be completely honest, funny enough. So like since I moved, lost contact with him a little bit, but every
Yep.
once in a while I'll reach out. So I worked at his bike shop when I was in my early 20s, late teens, and I was a terrible mechanic, but I wanted to be there because I knew it was, Bob Duncan's shop, and my mom was very good friends with him at that time. So um, I asked him early on. I think it was like my second or third year. I had like one good local race, and I asked him. I was like, "Do you think I can be a pro?" And I still I'll never forget his answer because he kind of looked at me and he's like maybe. that's that's all he
Oh
said. He was just
man.
he's just like I don't know, maybe. And looking back, I was like, I'm glad he had that outlook for me because he was somebody that was great to be around from a humble perspective
Hmm.
because I got to see what
Keep it
Starkowitz was
real.
doing all the time. Yeah, and I mean, I was nowhere near Starkowitz, and I realized that Andrew was now going to be a full time pro, but there was another pro who worked at the shop named Cody Boashek, who was a great friend of mine, who was a draft legal pro, and he had to work full time. So I realized, like, hey, I want to do this sport until I'm very old, and I want to be as fast as I can. But I also understood that I am only so naturally gifted. I'm not wildly strong. I mean, I'm a mid pack pro right now, which I'm proud of and going to hopefully get better. But I had to have a form of income
Yeah.
otherwise. And I
Yeah.
and I love working with endurance athletes. So my two side hustles now are, 30 hours a week. I'm a physical therapist and I'm a coach. I coach 20 people. So those two things allow me to have a really flexible schedule where I can train a lot. But early in my career, it was more, hey, I got to make enough money as a physical therapist to
Yeah.
where I can actually fund the travel for this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's expensive.
It
Yeah.
is, yeah,
Yeah. That's wild. That's a cool story with the Andrew Starkowitz coach, Bob Duncan, and
yeah.
stuff like that. That's really neat. Where was that shop?
That was in Southern Ohio. So that was
Okay.
Dayton, Ohio, is where Bob's shop was, or actually his shop was in Lebanon, Ohio. Um, Starkowitz lived in Illinois, I believe,
Yeah.
kind of rural Illinois.
Yeah.
But I forget how him and Bob met. But Bob was an old Marine and had been doing Ironmans when he was in the service too.
Okay.
And I think he met Starkowitz kind of through there. And Bob just kind of has this name in the Midwest triathlon community. He's kind of like the hard man's tri coach. So
Yeah.
that was
Fitz
Starkowitz
Andrew.
to a T. Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, if you met both these guys, you'd be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And Bob's his coach. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I met Andrew. I had an opportunity because somebody dropped out of one of his like training camp things he was doing, and
yeah,
I heard they were gonna do one at Lake Logan in North Carolina, and I
hmm
went up there, and that was my first experience getting to actually spend some time with someone who was like a professional in the sport, and all I remember was like standing next to this guy because I'm pretty short. I'm like
yeah.
5'5" and some inches, or not even centimeters. And looking at this guy's quads, I was like, "This is insane! Like, how is that even a real thigh?"
He's so strong. I mean,
Man,
the
he's so
guy's
strong.
just he's massive.
And he's
It's
massive, yeah, because we
yeah,
did like the Blue Ridge Parkway, which is I don't know how many thousands, like 10,000 feet, over 100 miles or more. And I tried to hang with him for a climb, one of the ascents, and it was like 30 seconds. And
yeah.
he was he's low zone two. I'm like beyond threshold VO2 max,
Yeah.
snotting. Oh, yeah.
And
But yeah,
I mean, he's always been a good hard bike trainer. Like that guy just trains hard on the bike, but he is, I actually love the, Blue Ridge Parkway area there. So
oh,
I
yeah,
used to go down there a decent amount and ride when I lived in the Midwest. And,
yeah. So
yeah,
pretty.
he has that fast camp there all the time. And I
Hmm.
mean, so that's always my picture of Starkowitz's training is Bob just putting in his TP is just like, hey, 7 hours of riding some Blue Ridge Parkway climbs today. So
Yeah, go hard on the climbs and
yeah,
descend.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. Oh man, I need to go back there. That was actually a really fun experience. Blue
Yeah.
Ridge Parkway is like some of the best riding ever. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Cherahalla Skyway in
Yep.
Tennessee. Have you been
Yep.
there?
Yeah. Yeah. I've ridden that actually. That's honestly one of my favorite rides in America. I
Oh
would say
man,
even including out here, I would say I love that ride.
yeah, because it's so nice, man. I actually started going for the first time. I've been like 6 times this year already.
Hmm.
But it's because there's no cars really. Like there's not
Yep.
like any major roadways, and it's just yeah, so pretty. Going out there
Hmm.
next weekend actually, but
Oh,
um
awesome.
yeah, man. So, the career then with PT,
Hmm.
how does that? I mean, obviously, it adds to what you're doing in triathlon a great deal, and especially with coaching. Anybody who has you as a
Hmm.
coach also gets that. Um, do you, when you're coaching, try to influence quite a bit with your PT side of things, like in the way that you do you
Yeah.
assign strength workouts? Like, how does that all look?
Yeah, I would actually say so. For me, early in my PT career, I worked at a place called Proactive, actually, which is in Vancouver, Washington, and I really early on realized I just want to work with endurance athletes.
Yeah,
But the clinic I was in wasn't exactly set up to do that, so I kind of became our specialist in that field.
right.
And I was lucky enough that over 4 or 5 years, I built a specialty. I kind of built a little name in the community. I knew a lot of the track and field coaches, and started kind of building that niche, and then started my own clinic with Proactive called the Endurance Lab. And it was very cool for a year. Unfortunately, it was post pandemic though. So it was, it was literally the year of the pandemic. Don't ever open a medical facility in the middle of a pandemic. It
Yeah,
was
tough times,
yeah, it was
stressful.
probably the most stressful 12 months of my entire life. But,
Yeah,
so it was, after that, I realized I was like, I really want to move to a specialist clinic. So we dropped that clinic and then I moved to Portland. My practice, I still live in Vancouver, but, with a group called Evolution Healthcare. And that's where I really have in the last year or two gotten to build a
yeah,
specialty with
yeah.
guys like Jake Stout and Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh was Nike's PT for the sub 2 hour project. So
Oh, cool. That's
I'm
cool.
very lucky to be around a guy like Matt. It's
Yeah,
awesome. I get to pick his brain. I get to annoy him all day, which is just great. So he
yeah.
tolerates me. But there's that for my base as a coach is basically everything. So when I look at try coaching, I look at somebody can be their best athlete if they're healthy for a really long time. So training matters, intervals matter, but at the end of the day, there's no secret interval sauce. So it's just can somebody stay healthy for a really long time and continue to stack volume and
Fitness
experience
ability.
over time? And from a PT perspective, my only goal is keeping somebody active. So that's my foundation is how do I keep this person's engine healthy? Are they recovering well? Are they overtraining? Which I really look back at my own overtraining experiences, especially for my young athletes, is like, hey, we're not going to walk that line.
Yeah.
And so that PT base is what I build all my coaching from, basically.
Yeah, that's really neat. How long have you been now practicing? You said since 2020
No,
or
actually, I've been
20?
practicing since 2017.
Okay.
Yeah. Technically 2016, because when I was over in India was 2016, I think, and that was kind of when I
Yeah.
believed I was kind of starting to practice on my own. So
Yeah.
2017, though. Yeah.
Okay, that's neat. That's a wealth of experience. How old are you?
Yeah. I'm going on 32 here like this weekend. So
Okay, nice.
yeah.
Congrats. Yeah.
I lie about my age all the time, though. I make this joke, and my wife knows it, is that so in the medical world, you never want to be in your 20s. You never want to tell a patient you're in your 20s if you're a
Yeah.
doctor of anything. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Especially if your patient's like 50 something and you say 28, they do not want to hear that. So I lied for the first 5 years of my career. I was 35 or 36 years old. I would just say it. And it got to the point where I started just like believing my own lie. So my wife used to joke, I forgot how old somebody would just ask me, like somebody I didn't even need to lie about my age to.
36.
Yeah, yeah, and I'd be like, I'm 34. They'd be like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Oh no, never mind. I'm 31. I'm sorry." Like I just I was like,
Yeah, I
I'm
was
just
gonna
so
say
used to
some people be
lying.
like, "Oh, you've been 30 for a long
Yeah,
time."
yeah. They're like, "You told me 2 years younger last week."
Yeah, that's crazy. Oh man. So then walk me through like at what point you decided or you qualified to like get your pro license and then
Mhm.
just the journey from there to there.
Yeah, so that was 2018 in Santa
Okay.
Cruz, California, 73, which is a bummer that that's off the pro calendar now because that was my favorite race for
Really?
ever since I moved out to the West Coast. Funny enough, in 2017, I had a real bad couple races and bad season for really the first time in my tri career. I'd always been very good at managing the amount of training I needed to do with work life, and I just hit a bad 6 months. So I was actually pretty close to quitting the sport, to be honest.
Really? Well,
Yeah, I was that's the closest I'll probably ever be because I don't think I'll ever really leave the sport. But in 2017, funny enough, I really had a bad year, and I had a conversation with a good friend of mine, and he just told me, he's like, you'll regret for the rest of your life if you give up this sport at this point. So I took that to heart, and I really ramped up in the off season of 2018 and came in with some, at that time, pretty good fitness for myself.
hmm.
And I went to a couple races throughout the year, was definitely building, feeling stronger. And by the time I hit I think kind of the end of the season, because that Santa Cruz race was in September, I had a great day there. And I think I was the second or third amateur. I think I was the third amateur. And at that time, it was the top three amateurs at a certain prize purse race in the overall can qualify for their pro card. I That might still be a rule. This was
Yeah,
enough years
there's
ago.
like
I'm not
several different
sure.
ways now. Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost too. And I have people I coach that always ask me this question, so I always have to look it up. I have it like saved on my computer, but it's a much more complicated process now.
Yeah.
And
Frustrating.
yeah, I mean, at that time, it was any West Coast race was pretty darn competitive because of Everyman Jack. So
Yeah.
like that team out here is just, I mean, they're everywhere, but they're so strong. So any West Coast race you went to, it was going to be two EMJ guys and then like me at that point. So I knew I needed to beat a lot of EMJ guys if I ever wanted to go pro.
Yeah.
But that was the first race when I realized like, okay, I think I'm good enough to maybe enter the pro field. Looking back, I don't think I think I should have waited another year or two. I don't think I was ready. But that was 2018, so I trained like a psycho 2019, just the whole off season. Like I was doing 24 to 26 hours a week consistently. That was while working like full time. Like that's back when I was working like 50 hours in the clinic.
Were you
So
married at this point? Engaged or?
not yet, not yet.
Okay. So it
I
worked.
definitely me and my girlfriend had been dating for how many, like a year at that point, 2 years maybe. And she got to see an interesting side of me in 2019 where it was very structured. I really only think I could have lived that way for a couple years, and that's what I was doing at that time.
Sure.
And so I then going into 2019, my first pro race was in Galveston. Funny enough, I got to race Andrew Starkowitz in that race. He
Okay.
won that race. I'm pretty. Oh, did I think Starkowitz won that day.
Yeah.
He might have beaten Matt Hansen too. So that was back when like North American Tri was fun in those days because there were more races.
Yeah.
So you would get these fun battles in the front, but
Yeah.
because that was on the same weekend as Oceanside, and I decided to do Galveston instead of Oceanside,
Okay.
and just Blue. I mean, I actually had an okay swim for me. I swam with Matt Russell that day and that
Yeah,
group, and just got the crap beat out of me. Those swims are so physical. Like that's the one thing I would tell any new pro is get used to physical swims because you're gonna get hit a lot.
really. Just
Yeah.
climbing over each other,
Oh,
like
just the starts are hilarious. I mean, you kind of just got to embrace it. Like I kind of love it at this point. You just hit each other. It's just everybody's throwing elbows. You're getting kicked in the face. You just got to get used to that, and it is a fun part of the sport. But I mean, anybody who's nervous about open water swimming, I would say wait on your pro card until you're okay with getting hit in the face because it's
yeah.
it's tough. But so I mean, I wasn't a great swimmer, but I was able to stay with them and came off biked pretty well for me, but definitely overbiked at that time, and then just absolutely fell apart on the run.
Mm.
I wasn't last, but I was one of the last maybe five finishers, and kind of struggled through that 2019 season. I threw down one good run in Chattanooga that year. Love that race. Chattanooga's a great race.
Oh yeah, it's my first or second
Yeah,
ever. Yeah.
yeah. So I was never last, but I was towards the back of the field, and then 2020 came around, and obviously, we all know how that went. So
Yeah.
there's no races, but that was the year I started training like a professional. So I was still working a lot. I was still working 50 hours a week, and that's when I got my own clinic. So I was running my own clinic too, and life
Insane.
was life was about as busy as it could possibly be. But I was training, recovering. I was the most boring human being you'd ever meet in your life. It was either training, working, or sleeping,
Yeah.
basically. And I loved it though because that year we just didn't race, and all I did was try to train 25 hours a week.
Yeah, just
Yeah, that
building
was
up.
that was my number, was 25. I only ran into one injury. I had a little tendon issue. That was it. And outside of that, it was a huge training block time period. So I came into 2021 pretty fit, and then once we started racing again, all of a sudden I ran two, or in 2021 and 2022, I ran two 116s off the bike.
Wow.
um, I was biking, near that 300-watt mark for bike splits. So my swim still needed work, and this year has finally seen a little bit of improvements. But it was a slow climb, man. It was like 2019 all the way to this year was a very I've only seen 1% and 2% improvements at a time. I've definitely not the athlete that had a big jump at any point.
Mm.
I've gone from back of the pack to a guy that finishes dead 50 percentile now, basically, in,
Yeah.
in, in a good race for me, unless it's a race like I had a good day at White Lake. Let's say I was like fifth out of 12 or 13 guys, but
Okay.
that's, a different type of race. So
Yeah.
it's got the journey of a mid pack pro is completely anonymous is what I tell people is you go from doing well in local races and going and being able to be competing for wins in amateur Ironmans, and then all of a sudden, just everybody nobody cares about you. You're like 25th out of 50,
Yeah.
and it's like nobody cares. So it's
Yeah.
it's a it's a funny progression, but I can honestly say I love it because it's a lot of hard work for little improvements, and I mean
Yeah.
like seconds at a time is what you're aiming for.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty phenomenal. It's interesting what you said about COVID too during that time. Just like able to keep your head down and go, because there's so many people I've talked to, even in the pro field, who that story is, especially Paula. Um,
Yeah,
she was like
yeah.
struggling with injury quite a bit, and then yeah, coming into that, she could just focus on just training, and a lot of people, and it seems like people came back a lot stronger and ready to go to town.
2020 kind of changed the pro sport. I'm not sure what happened there, man. It was almost like all of us realized that, yes, we love racing. Like, I love racing. Clearly, I mean, that was the whole early part of my career was nothing but racing.
Yeah,
But really, what we love is building fitness. And
yeah,
all of a sudden, we had this like 12-month time period where all you did was train. And it was pretty cool. I mean, I
yeah,
used to pay attention to the Zwift tri races at that
yeah,
time. That's
same.
how desperate we were for like any form of racing, man. I would jump in Zwift races. We'd make up our own like track races and stuff. It was
Hmm.
it was fun, but yeah, I keep on hearing that narrative with a lot of pros is they're like, oh, my career shifted in 2020. Like I got a lot faster that year.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That's so neat. So tell me about your most recent race and what happened. How did it
Yeah,
unpack?
yeah. So I just got done with Salem this last weekend, which is Oregon 73.
Yeah,
Almost a home race for me. I got to drive down there, which is great.
nice.
It's great not to have to hop on a plane. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I had just come off of a couple halves. So I had done White Lake half earlier in the year. It was fifth there, had a good day.
nice.
Then I went to Pat Crest, which is a race out here with a very small pro field. It was basically me and a guy named Devin Volk, who is next up, people need to watch out for Devin Volk. Devin Volk is coming, and he's strong, man. That guy's no joke. And
Really?
he beat me by like 8 or 9 minutes out in Pat Crest. We had a crazy race. It was snowing during the race.
Are you
So,
serious?
dude, it was snowing. It was sleeting on the bike. And
Oh,
because you have to go over what's called Mount Bachelor's Pass during that race.
yep.
So we had a
Wow, that's a
freezing
serious
cold,
place.
yeah, freezing cold river swim, hop out, and then you hop on the bike. We're putting on all this warm stuff. We have like 5 minute transitions and then sprinting out and climbing up into the snow, basically. One of the most fun races me and Devin will probably ever do against each other, but it was
Yeah.
wild. So coming off that race, had a good training block. Um, but I came into Salem and we were going to, so it's a downriver swim, but it was non-wetsuit. 45 guys on the start. So it was a really physical start, very small start area on a riverfront. And I had an okay swim. I think I came out like 33rd, which for me is not bad. I was like right off the pack I wanted to be. And pushed the bike really hard and went like 210, I think. Could
Nice.
have gone a little bit quicker, but I launched a bottle, so I had to stop in the aid station and make
Mm,
sure I was trying to keep up on fluids.
yeah.
But hit the run and was just dead. So that's unfortunately been the last like two races for me. Is my usual run legs aren't feeling great. So
Yeah.
in the pro field, you go from, I think at one point in the race I was 20th at a 45 and then dropped down to 26th at the finish. So
Yeah.
if you don't have it on the run, you're gonna get passed, and it's gonna,
Yeah.
it's there's no holding on. There's guys moving fast, and there's guys who are just trying to get to the finish, and I was definitely just a guy trying to get to the finish. So
Yeah.
I'm switching up a lot of stuff with my run training now, and then I'll be going into this next race in Michigan 73. So I'm coming back to the Midwest,
Nice.
and yeah, we'll try to correct those mistakes. But swimming and biking well, just need to figure out the run now.
Yeah. Tell me about the run training. Like, what are you thinking about switching up if you don't mind talking about it?
Yeah. So I'll even talk specifics. I'm actually going back to what I was doing more in 2020 and 2021. Full disclosure, I had a coach this last year for the first time in my life for 9 months. I had a friend of mine coach me for a very short bit years ago named Chris Lee, who's one of the best strength coaches in the entire country. He's
Yeah.
a Boulder, Colorado guy. I love Chris. But basically, my entire 13-year career or whatever has been self-coached until this last year. And I love my coach. He would, like, I would have told anybody who asked me, "Hey, I need a coach," I'd tell him, go and see Elliot. His name's Elliot Bassett. He coaches guys like Ernie Mantell. He's just a great coach. But I am going back to self coaching now after this race, just because I just respond better to being coached by me, because after doing it for so many years, I do think it's hard to let go. That's why I even look at guys like Sam Long when he got so much crap for leaving Dan Plews.
Mm-hmm.
I It's no indictment against Dan Plush. I mean, I would suggest my coach to anybody, like absolutely anybody, and I even coach people. I'd be like, Elliot's the guy. But
Yeah.
it's certain personalities I think just coach themselves really well, and that's not for everybody. But if you're confident that you can coach yourself, just do it. Like, don't think you're doing a bad thing or that you're missing out on something.
Yeah.
It's a coach is there to give people confidence, and if you have confidence coaching yourself, you should.
Yeah.
But my run training is going to look a little bit more intense than it has this last year. So I'm gonna go back to around 50 to 54 mile volume per
Mm-hmm.
week, and I'm gonna be doing a Thursday track workout again. I do a lot of LT2 Ks. That's kind of my progression. So like this week will be 6x1K off the bike. Actually, later today will be 6x1K off the bike, 8x1K off the bike the next week, 10x1K, and then into longer tempos. And I do some lactate testing every once in a while. I'll kind of check myself on the track. I have a couple 2 year long Excel doc now that tracks a lot of that.
Okay.
But that's kind of my key track workout. And then I do a Ironman pace off the bike on my Saturday, and then a long run with a lot of hills and trails. That's about 2 hours to 2.5 hours on Sundays.
Okay. Nice. So
Yep. And
you're
then everything outside that's easy running.
yeah. So are you trying to like your longest run? Is that gonna you just do it based on time?
Yeah, I do. It's just because there was a study years ago that showed there's limited aerobic benefits for running past 2 hours for marathon trainers. Different in the ultra world, completely different for the ultra
Yeah.
world.
You
But
have to.
anywhere around 2 hours was considered a diminishing return beyond that. So really the longest long run I'll do is just going to be probably 2.5 hours leading into Ironman Florida.
Yeah.
I'm
Same,
not going
like
to go any
22, 23
longer.
miles or something. Well, you probably
Yeah,
hit 24 miles.
we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a lie because I am doing a 50K trail run in this
Oh,
block. Yeah, I signed up for the Bonneville or Three Corners
okay.
50K that I'm doing with my buddy Ari Clow signed up for it, and
Oh, yeah.
he just peer pressured me into it. So I'm like,
Nice.
sure, I'll go and stomp around trails for
How many
50K.
weeks before the race is that?
Plenty. I think it's like September. It's like September 2nd, so it's like 2 weeks before Michigan 73. So I'll
Yeah,
just
yeah, you'll
yeah,
be fine.
but I kind of need to do a long day before jumping into a marathon or
Yeah.
jumping into an Ironman.
Yeah, for sure. Cool, man. Well, that's exciting to see how the Ironman Florida comes. I've heard that
Yeah.
swim can sometimes be gnarly. I have some people that did it like a couple of years ago, and it was like, I mean, even the pro times I'm pretty sure were like
Oh,
really
they're
long because the
so
current was
slow.
ripping.
Yeah, so slow. I
Yeah,
mean, it's like didn't I think like Gustav Eden even went like barely under an hour. He was
yeah,
like just dipping under an hour. So I'm like,
yeah,
okay, everybody's going to be 10, 15 minutes slower than they usually are.
yeah, yeah. It's pretty wild. Yeah, that's crazy. So what's it been like? Because I know you said like you mid-pack pro, okay, you're not like getting super recognized, but I imagine you get to know a lot of different professionals, even at the top, or is there any exclusivity, or do you feel like it's pretty chill?
Ooh, that's a good question. There's so I love the mid pack is like this really fun group of guys. Like I mean there's probably 20, 30 guys I've met over the last 4 or 5 years that are just we'll lodge together, we'll travel together. If anybody's in town, you train with them. We message back and forth all the time. It's just it's a small community that gets to know each other really well because I
Hmm.
mean it's a niche sport, you know. I mean
Oh yeah, for sure.
there's not a ton of people doing this.
Yeah, even in the amateur world, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and at the top end of the amateur field, I mean, a lot of those guys are fully capable of just jumping in and being mid pack pros already. It's just the race dynamics and getting used to stuff like that. But it's a fun world to be a part of. There is a lot of the top pros are super approachable, nice guys though, guys and gals. Like I've gotten to hang out with Eric and Paula. Paula's one of the Eric's awesome, and Paula's one of the nicest people you'll meet. Honestly, she's
yeah,
great and got to meet Lionel a few times. And I think Lionel's one of those guys that any age grouper that ever came up and tried to talk to Lionel, he's so easy to talk. I mean, he's a super just welcoming, nice guy for how intense he
yeah,
seems. I
yeah,
mean, you watch some of his old videos and you think like, man, this guy's a full on psycho. Like,
yeah. He's
there's
gonna
no
rip
way.
your head off.
Yeah, exactly. No, he's an awesome guy. Like at Salem, he's talking and catching up with Ari, and I get to go up and talk with him. And he's just like being a dad. He's got his kid and Aaron
Yeah,
right there. So
that's cool.
he's an awesome guy. I've heard the same thing about a guy like Sam Long. One of my first races, I got to talk with Matt Russell before the race, who's just a legend of the sport in North America. And he's like Matt's like the nicest guy you'll ever meet. He was like pumping up everybody's tires in transition. He's like not even focusing on his own race. He's just a super nice guy. So
Hmm.
I I think that most of the pros you meet are like that. I'm sure there's exceptions, but
Sure.
I'm a talkative social guy, so I'll talk to anybody in transition, and I feel like that's probably how most pros are too.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I've actually been shocked. So when I started this podcast, I have kind of a list of names I was going to go through, and like I was like, yeah, I could probably get at least 50% of these. And the more I reach out to people, like I don't know how many I have stacked up now, probably 9 or 10, but so many
Yeah.
pros, even if they can't commit, they're like responding to me with like a paragraph and like
Right?
rooting for
Yeah.
me and stuff. Yeah, so it's been one of the coolest because I mean, you can't go out and like let's just say if I was going to do this in kind of a podcast in like the I don't know Hollywood world, it'd be next
Yeah.
to impossible to get any of these actors. And I think part of it's because, well, a large piece of it's because everyone's super nice, but another part is like
Mhm.
it's still a growing sport. And I think they
Yeah.
realize, or we all realize, like to grow this sport, there's got to be more podcasts and YouTubes and
Hmm.
whatever, and to have that kind of media push. So I think that's part of it too, because we're not super
Yeah.
grown. But I hope that triathlon always keeps that super tight community feel because it's
Yeah.
almost like a religion in a lot of ways for people. I think it is, but
It is. It
yeah,
is. I mean, it's. I think it'll always be a niche, just because it's a hard thing to watch still. I mean, like I'll watch anything. I'll watch a full Ironman. Like
yeah.
I could care less. But
I'm saying,
it's
yeah,
and you know what? At the end of the day, I've actually talked with a couple guys about this. That I know we always want to grow the sport, and it's like the media around it right now is great. Like from guys like you all the way to like the Daily Try to
hmm
I mean the Jack Kelly and the Triathlon Hour. I mean there's more and more media, which is what'll grow the sport. And stuff like
Right.
Super League is just awesome. But I it's always going to be a smaller sport, and I'm fine with that. Like
Yeah, for sure.
that keeps it cool. You know, I mean, it's like if all of a sudden there's millions and millions of dollars pumping into this sport, I think I mean,
Money changes people
yeah,
and things,
yeah,
yeah,
it
in the
changes the
dynamic.
entire dynamic of the sport. I mean, there's most of your like NFL, NBA guys, I don't think are the type of guys you can just like walk up to and be like, "Hey man, how's your day going?" They got like security patrol with them.
Yeah.
Like I've
And
never
making
seen a
20
triath
million bucks a year, yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen a triathlete walking around with any security around them, and I hope that that continue like
Yeah.
if I mean if Lionel Sanders has to start going to races with security, like that's going to change the sport, and that's kind
Yeah.
of sad, you know.
Yeah.
So I hope that that never happens. I'd love to see more money pump into the sport, and that's when media becomes a big part of that because
Sure.
I'd love to see young triathletes be able to like not have to afford a triathlon bike to be able to do this because
Yeah.
I know that I was, I mean, I grew up middle class, but I know that I was lucky enough to be, work at a bike shop where I could get get free stuff, and there, I mean, but like, and I was able to travel with people to races, and we
Yeah.
stay in hotels and stuff and share rooms, and you have to be integrated in the community to afford it, but I would love to see the sport grow enough to where that kid that can't afford the bike but is talented
Mhm.
can still race and can still grow through the sport.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I think it'll continue to grow that way. At least it seems like it's going to. Lots of even
Hmm.
pros themselves are trying to come up with different groups, and you have Waterfall Bank coming
Yeah.
in, and like a lot of
TTL's
these different
group.
kind of smaller
Yep.
groups want to come in and make something happen. So I think there's a lot that can still happen and will continue to
Hmm.
grow. So as far as like your professional career, what are your goals for like this rest of this year and then going into the next 5 years? What are you thinking?
Ooh, yeah, five. I like that 5 year look for me because as I'm turning 32, I'm thinking for me and my wife, my cap might be 5 more years before it's time to consider making it fun again, I guess. But
Yeah,
well, before 10 hours a week will seem like a stretch with life responsibilities. But
yeah,
for the next 5 years, my goal definitely is so with this upcoming race in Michigan, top 50th percentile. I want to be in the top half of the race again. And I definitely going into next year with races like Oceanside. Um, Oceanside's one that I really want to show I'm competitive at.
yeah,
Salem again next year. I want to be a consistent top 15 guy is kind of the next step for me. I've been dancing around that 20 number a lot, so I would like to move up 5, 6, 7 slots
yeah,
would be the goal, and that's a big ask. I definitely don't mitigate that because the guys that I am trying to pass there, I know they're training really well, and a lot of them are my friends too, and I know how hard they train, and I know how fast some of these guys are,
yeah.
and it's just
Fast
moving.
runners.
Yeah, just moving up the field is not easy as it sounds. I mean, you got to pass a guy that's also training as many hours as you are a week,
Yeah,
so it comes down to learning to race better and getting really good at the little things in the pro field because we're all training hard. I mean, every guy pushes big watts on the bike. Every guy can run super fast fresh. So I mean, there's a lot of collegiate runners now in the field. Most guys were either a collegiate runner or a collegiate
yeah.
swimmer.
They're so fast. It's
Oh
stupid.
my god! I
Those
mean,
five
try.
minute miles for
Oh, dude.
13
I
miles.
mean,
It's like,
I get to see Ari Klaus training every single week, and that guy ran at Virginia, and I mean was an
yeah.
All American. So it's like okay. I mean, and he
He makes
tracks at
running look stupid easy,
Oh, I
man.
mean,
It's
he's like
insane.
jogging and talking at 5:45 pace. You got guys like Trevor Foley who are just, I mean, Trevor's aerobic pace off the hard bike. He's like jogging 620 pace. Like it's just he's floating.
Yeah,
So it's a sport that's growing with talent and with really hardworking guys. So moving up slots is tough, but I know I can be there. I mean, I definitely have enough confidence that I very slowly improved for a long time, and I expect that to keep happening. I mean, I've been
yeah,
doing the sport for going on 14 years by next year.
yeah,
So yeah, I think when you've been doing it long enough, you realize that there's no big jumps, but you
yeah.
will,
Small gains. That's what
yeah,
my coach
small
tells me all the
gains.
time.
Small gains for a long time is
Yeah,
basically the formula.
yeah. Add a percent per year would be great.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a percent a year. You think about it, a decade. That's 10% better. That's
Yeah,
not
you're like
bad.
you're growing quite a bit. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Oh man, I just have to recount this story. I forgot to tell at the beginning, but when I first met you, it was down
Mhm.
at St. Anthony's, and I was just doing like a little off the bike run, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll run with this guy. I'll follow behind him. He's going at a pretty good pace, and that's what I kind of needed to hold.
Yeah.
And then I was holding it, and then you started to wait for me, and I was like, oh no, I'm cramping. And I tried to hang with you, and I was like, "You're gonna have to just leave me."
if
And
it
then
if
I
it
did
makes
had no idea you were a pro at that point. I was like, "Oh, maybe I'll be racing this guy." No, he definitely smoked me, but
if
um,
it makes you feel any better, on that run I ended up cramping too because it was a humid, man. I'll tell you what, coming from the Pacific Northwest winter to Florida, I was like, this is not gonna be easy. That was,
yeah,
I mean, speaking of amazing performances, is Jason West in that race, man.
he
He's
took out like
oh
because we did a duathlon. Yeah,
yep, yep. What
it's
did
like
he take out? I think I
I
heard
think it
his
was like a
first
4:20
420.
for
Yeah,
like
yeah,
a
it was
mile
some.
and a half.
Yeah, he was just flying,
It was
just
like less
amazing.
than 7 minutes or something, or less than eight
Yeah,
minutes.
yeah, he was flying. But I mean, that's kind of the range of the sport now. Is you got guys like with Jason West's run speed that like don't win every single race. You know, I mean,
Hmm.
like Jason would admit, like, hey, he's good, but I mean, he goes these PTO races and he's battling for that top five. And there's other guys in the world that are capable of running 108s off the bike in a half, which is just mind blowing.
Stupid,
It
stupid
is.
fast.
It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, it's wild. Oh man, well it'll be interesting to see what happens next year. Do you think you'll
Mhm.
do St. Anthony's next year?
No, probably not. Just
No.
because I'll do White Lake again. Like 90% sure I'll do White Lake again. But for me, the back to back race weekends with that much travel was pretty tough. So just with my clinical schedule and all that, I have to be pretty careful with how I balance out my race schedule. But
Yeah.
St. A's was like a bucket lister for me. I
Yeah.
knew I wasn't going to do very good in that race because I don't train for that style of racing. But that was one where it's like, man, this race has been around forever. I mean, it's one of the oldest triathlons in
Yeah.
America, I think. So I
Yeah,
was
I think
like, yeah,
did they have a 100-year anniversary or something like that, or some crazy? Not
some
hundred, but it was like
I think it was 40, wasn't it?
was it
I think
40?
it was the
Yeah,
40 year. I need to get that right, but yeah,
that's like
because
the
it
birth of triathlon,
yeah,
basically.
yeah. I mean, it was like that and Oceanside, whatever Oceanside was before, and I mean those are some of the oldest races in the country. So it's like, okay, got to check off. You know, when I'm 60, I want to make sure I at least checked off the cool races.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, for sure. I want to do it again just because I want to do the swim portion.
yeah,
Because
I
it
was
looked
bummed
like a
to.
even that morning ended up
It
looking
was
like
good.
a gorgeous swim.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I get why they canceled it. It made
sure.
sense at the time, but yeah, I agree. As I would have loved to do that swim.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we'll see what happens in the future. So let me ask you this question, a little bit more
Mhm.
serious note. Um, in the future, I guess once you are gone, what do you want to be remembered for?
Oh, that's a good one. You know, it's actually I have a somewhat prepared answer for that already. My me and my wife just talked about this because
Really?
I'll be completely honest on this podcast. After Salem, after this last weekend, I had a little, you know, just like a day of being pretty bummed. Not that it was a bad race, but it's tough just continuing to be right in the middle and not
Mm,
seeing improvement.
yeah.
Um, Even though we're improving a little bit at a time, it's really tough to improve slowly. So
Yeah.
for me, at the end of the day, I know that I'm not going to be a world champion. That's okay. I'm not delusional. I can admit that to myself.
Sure.
So I coach a lot of youths. Like later today, I'm going to a practice with, you know, 7 or 8 young kids who want to just try their first triathlon. They're terrified of open water swimming, and some of them are like just learning how to ride bikes.
Yeah.
I want to be the guy in a community
Mm,
that I don't care if people remember that like I rode a bike decently quick or ran okay. Like I'd much rather be remembered for the guy that like people felt comfortable enough around to ask funny enough to bring it to your podcast. The title is stupid questions. Like,
mm,
I mean, all I do is answer questions all day. Like I'm a physical therapist and a coach. So at the end of the day, I just try to make people feel comfortable with trying something new. And if enough people who knew me were like, "Hey, you know, Evan made triathlon seem a little bit less scary," then that's kind of what I want to be remembered for. And for a lot of what I do, it's older people in life that are trying to, you know, do their first Ironman, or it's a bunch of juniors who are terrified of trying a new sport, but they got out there and did it anyway. So that's kind of what I want to be remembered for is somebody who got people into the sport that maybe otherwise wouldn't have tried it.
yeah. Beautiful. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for answering those questions, and thanks so much for jumping on with me.
Absolutely.
Just such a cool experience to get to know you a little bit more, and I hope to stay in touch and
Yeah.
hopefully one day get to race against you.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah, man. We got a you got a place to stay with me if you ever want to hop out to the Pacific Northwest for a race out here.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Awesome. So thank you so much for checking out this episode with Evan Bryce. Super awesome guy, as you can tell, super nice. I would encourage you to go follow him on Instagram. We'll tag him in the show notes. Keep an eye on his career, and hopefully he does super well this year and can not only be a mid-pack pro, but a top-end pro. I think he's got it in him. I've seen the guy run, swim, bike, and run, and he is quite good at it. So thank you so much for checking it out. Check out the show notes for all of those links, and we will catch you guys in the next one. See ya.